Hello and welcome to this tool time meeting. The topic is my bit more balanced life. How might my life wheel be rolling at this moment in time? How might I become a little more okay with a bit of that? As I go through this presentation, perhaps I'll cut myself some slack and breathe. So if I feel myself getting upset or disturbed, I might breathe in through my nose for 4, hold for a second, out through my mouth for 8, hold for a second, especially belly or diaphragmatic breathing, the way my belly moves in and out as I breathe. Focusing on diaphragmatic or belly breathing is said to reduce nervous tension by 40 to 60%. In, 2, 3, 4, hold, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, hold. Having said all that, discomfort might actually indicate that growth is occurring for me or is becoming more likely, and part of me doesn't want that to happen, wants me to stay exactly as I am, to keep me safe, even if it's not helpful to me. So if growth is occurring, if I'm feeling a little bit of discomfort or frustration, I might actually sit with it for a moment, give myself permission to feel uncomfortable and see what's happening. As I go through this presentation also, I might choose to do what I can with what I have where I am. Do what I can with what I have where I am. There's no need to throw myself out and start again. I can just gradually build in a direction that I'd prefer to be going. In this presentation, and as a result of it, I ain't got to do nothing. I'm not required to do anything. I might choose to, however. If I see something in this presentation and I think, oh no, I don't like the look of that, I might put it aside and never look at it again, or maybe pick it up a little bit later when it has more meaning for me. If I see something in this presentation that I think, hey, I think I might use that, that could help me, then I might actually grab it and run with it. It's entirely up to me. I ain't got to do nothing. I do trust, however, you'll find something helpful in here. If you do, that's wonderful. If you don't, well, it's not quite as wonderful, but that's how it is. A quote taken from someone has been changed to make it first person. So rather than me saying you, I'll say I. Less absolute, so you don't have to do anything. I'm not required to do anything. I ain't got to do nothing. It is still usually attributed to the person where possible. Where 2 question marks appear, I might like to pause the presentation and consider writing an answer in my journal or on a piece of paper, or simply pondering for a moment. So where you do see 2 question marks, I do commend to the idea of just pausing and just seeing what's happening for you at that particular moment. Entirely up to you, of course. I ain't got to do nothing. A place to start might be me being a little more at peace. So I commend to you the 3-minute guided meditation that's found on the link on the screen at the moment, and also in the description box below. Every link should be in the description box below. If it's not, if you could please let me know, that would be great. There's also a 45-minute meditation on the same page. So it's going from 3 minutes to 45 minutes. That's quite a large jump. In any event, I commend those to you, or a meditation practice of your own that you might like to either restart or maybe pick up. Depression seems to be an overactive mind. A daily meditation, mindfulness, relaxation, or simply letting go practice has been shown to be a bit helpful in this regard, especially questioning a thought for how helpful it might be, thanks brain, or simply observing it without engaging. Perhaps reducing an absolute thought a little more towards a preference type thought instead. I commend to the ABC of rational emotive behaviour therapy in the description box below. There is no such thing as an unhelpful addictive behaviour. There was only a thing that I chose to do a bit more often than the rest of my life. Wow, thanks, Doug. Perhaps as I'm a bit more able to, moving from my life made a bit smaller by my unhelpful addictive behaviour, toward my bit richer, bit fuller, or somewhat more meaningful life of my increasing choice, as I am a bit more able to, perhaps over time. Where I will find myself if I'm in the midst of an unhelpful addictive behaviour is my main focus is how can I get some of whatever I'm doing? How might I use it? How can I feel better or worse? And then restart the process. And the rest of my life is pushed into the corner. So get used, feel better or worse, then restart the process. A common human place to find myself. So rather than beat myself up mercilessly for how I could possibly get into this situation, cut myself a bit of slack perhaps, and maybe just acknowledge my humanness. Doesn't mean it's inevitable, just means that it's common human behaviour. In this rest of my life might sit, as well as another thing, my health, my productivity, a relationship I would have said I value, and a bit of my true happiness. As I said before, a common human predicament I might find my precious self or life to be in. I'm not broken or from another planet or need to throw myself out and start again. It's simply a human predicament that I might be able to rise above, to move away from over time. My life balance wheel, the link is in the description box below. I commend the idea of having a look at it to you and trust it will be of help. Regaining a bit of my health and creating a bit more of a lifestyle for myself that is tending to bring me a longer term satisfaction instead of focusing on a shorter term satisfaction or relief is an important part of my different life, said a participant in this meeting. Probably a slightly more balanced life might be an indicator that I am in a bit fuller, richer life or moving somewhat toward it. What might this balanced thing be and how might I move a little more toward it? Living a bit more deeply satisfying life, balancing and enduring and a momentary satisfaction in my life, doing something a bit more helpful than my troublesome, unhelpful, addictive behaviour. Thanks, brain. What tool might I use to see the benefit versus the cost or the risk versus the reward of my unhelpful, addictive behaviour? Please consider pausing, easy for me to say, please consider pausing the presentation and maybe having a bit of a think what you might use. In rational emotive behaviour therapy, there's the cost-benefit analysis. I prefer to call it the benefit-cost matrix. There's also a risk-reward analysis for alcohol, a drug, or an unhelpful behaviour. The risk-reward analysis tool will be looked at in some detail in the coming presentations, maybe not necessarily next week, but certainly at some point. Satisfaction or satisfying, living and behaving in a way that means I get a bit more deeper satisfaction in my life, according to a belief that it may be a bit more helpful to a bit more meaningfully participate in my life when and where possible. Attempting to gauge net pleasure, pleasure minus pain. The difficulty with an unhelpful addictive behaviour is that the temporary satisfaction or relief or pleasure tends to eventually lead to a substantial amount of pain and loss. When I started using, it was 100% pleasure. Just before I stopped using, it was almost 100% pain. Thanks, George Carlin, greatly missed. Something to consider may be me choosing to move a little more toward my life containing a bit better balance of shorter-term satisfaction and longer-term satisfaction. Perhaps a bit more longer-term satisfaction might be a possible goal, maybe through my increasingly longer-term expression or fulfillment of a bit deeper value of mine or a skill I am choosing to develop perhaps over time, possibly while striving to avoid a shorter-term satisfaction that might carry a shorter-term or longer-term adverse effect. My unhelpful shorter-term satisfaction might often be derailing my longer-term satisfaction, sabotaging it. In full flight unhelpful addictive behaviour, it commonly tends to. Rather than self-sabotage, which is often stated, which suggests intent on my part, I'm likely saying it won't happen this time and ignoring an almost certain outcome of mine. A very common human thing to do, which I've certainly been subject to. So I'm not actually self-sabotaging. There's no intent there. I'm just saying, no, I think I've got it this time. It won't happen this time. And ignoring an almost certain outcome. Shorter term satisfaction might be hijacked by a demand for instant gratification. My pig, problematic instant gratification, oink. My POU, poison once used, pronounced poo. Alcohol, drug, gambling, sex, etc., especially when I see it as easier, the path of least resistance. I must have it now. A common human place to find myself. Thanks, brain. A feeling in place of a value or goal of mine. I don't feel like it. Emotional reasoning. Procrastination might be a sibling of unhelpful addictive behaviour. I can not feel like something and still actually do it. Discomfort or anxiety or uncertainty avoidance. I can't stand my feeling, so I must seek relief or pleasure now to feel better now. A common human thing. Where is the chance that when I say I can't stand it, I might actually be saying I won't stand it. I refuse to stand it, with a bit of 2-year-old foot stomping. I see a lot of my 2-year-old in my previous unhelpful addictive behaviour, a common human thing. It makes me smile now, but it wasn't all that helpful back then. I am choosing not to stand it, even while not appearing to have a choice in my own eyes. Interesting stuff. Entitlement thinking. I deserve to not be uncomfortable or in pain. I deserve to not feel like I do right now. I'm entitled to have a drink or drug like they do. Why can't I? Stomp a 2-year-old foot again. Gotta love that 2-year-old. Approval seeking. I might fit in with the crowd or a crowd. I might be part of. Rebellion. I don't want to fit in with society. I won't do what is expected of me. I will cut off my nose to teach my face a lesson. I won't take part. Then I can't possibly lose. A rebel without a fully functioning brain. A rebel without attention to a clue. Or a human who has an unhelpful coping style, more to the point. Common human behaviour doesn't mean it's inevitable or I can't actually move away from it. To what degree might I see a thought like one of these 5 or a behaviour of this type helping drive an unhelpful addictive behaviour of mine just a tiny little bit? I commend the idea to you of pausing the presentation and maybe pondering these things a bit and maybe having a look for a 2-year-old lurking in the darkness. A bit of my longer term satisfaction suggested by Albert Ellis, who was the founder of Rational Emotive Behaviour Therapy or Training, might be guided by a value or goal of mine, an effort of mine to get a little bit more in sync or alignment, a thought, a value, a goal, an intention, an action, a feeling, rather than a straight line, more like a fluid interconnected area or a recipe or a melting pot or garden with thoughts, values, goal, intention, action, and feeling all growing there, trying to get them all in a functioning, helpful way. A bit more helpful thought. I might choose to stand it a bit. I will choose to stand it a bit. I choose to stand it a bit. I choose to give myself permission to feel a bit of discomfort, frustration, or nervous tension, to work a bit toward progress that is more helpful and more relevant to me as a person. I choose to give myself permission to feel discomfort, frustration, or nervous tension or uncertainty. Longer term satisfaction might also be guided by an evolving, bit more helpful view of my future, safeguarded a bit against an unhelpful satisfaction of the present, planning, reviewing, charting and recording where I feel it's helpful and appropriate, catching an unhelpful thought of mine. Thanks, brain. Oh, of course I'll do that, brain. You've never steered me wrong in the past. Longer term satisfaction might be further guided by a bit more reality-based thought or plan or act of mine instead of me wishing. I might put in a bit of effort in a direction I'd prefer to be going. Closer look at guided by a value of mine or a goal. Goals have been said to be SMART, specific, measurable, agreeable or achievable, realistic and time-bound, and probably the most helpful thing there is time-bound. What document might seek to capture a value of mine? Please consider pausing the presentation and looking at what document might capture a value of mine. In rational emotive behaviour therapy and smart recovery, it's known as the hierarchy of values, HOV. I commend clicking on the link in the description box below. A value from my hierarchy of values or my increasing belief in a value from my hierarchy of values might be pretty helpful in moving in a direction that I'd prefer to be going. I commend that idea to you. What might be one thing listed on my hierarchy of values that I might like to share or might like to focus on at the moment? Please consider pausing the presentation and perhaps looking at a hierarchy of values value, if that's what you would like to do. For myself, I used to have health and fitness on the same line, health and fitness, but now I've split them up to health and fitness and also self-expression. They're probably my three main ones. Well, the three ones I prefer to have the most focus on. The instructions for the hierarchy of values ask me, once I have values of mine there, to maybe put my poison once used, my poo, on my list and perhaps ask myself which value of mine might be able to live with my poison once used, or how intact might that value be? How might a value of mine last or be as well expressed when my poison once used or poo is present? Please consider pausing the presentation and maybe doing that exercise if you feel it could be helpful. In my case, once my poison once used was there, my values on my hierarchy of values disappeared completely or were very much watered down. Question I might ponder a bit: when was the last time that I looked at my hierarchy of values? How often looking at it might be a little more helpful? How might I schedule looking at it or help looking at it happen? Please consider pausing the presentation and maybe pondering those questions. How might I evaluate how balanced my life might be? The following is a suggested way. Before this process starts, I would ask you to please consider an agreement. When I'm choosing to upset myself about my lifestyle balance wheel, I might work an ABC tool in writing. So if I am upsetting myself about my life balance, I might work an ABC tool in writing. In the description box below is the link. The lifestyle balance wheel is just a thing. It's feedback, it's information, it's inert. I might be making it mean something and beating myself up mercilessly when I look at it. And that has been shown to be very unhelpful. Beating myself up mercilessly has been shown to be unhelpful. There's a surprise, I bet. Rather than a thing freely upsetting me, I might choose to alter the degree to which I upset myself about it. That would be the basis of an ABC. I try to keep in mind that increasing a bit of my awareness is probably a helpful ingredient for an alteration in something I do to be a bit more possible. So the purpose of this is for me to increase my awareness so that an alteration in behaviour could perhaps be a bit more possible. I have seen people get really upset about their life balance, so I'd ask you to please move a little bit away from that where and if possible. A bit more meaningful life may be a result of a bit more balance, one in which a bit more time, as I see it, is given to an activity that a bit better expresses a value of mine. A priority of mine might be to behave a bit more in a manner that a bit more consistently sustains a thing I value. So the reason a bit more is used there often is I'm not trying to reinvent myself or throw myself out and start again. I'm simply looking at altering a little bit of my behaviour to move in a little bit more helpful direction. It doesn't have to happen overnight. Exercise, if it suits me, I might like to do this. On a blank piece of paper, I might draw a large circle, taking up most of the paper. I might divide my circle into sections or segments according to the closely held values I have. An even number of values might make this exercise easier. I might label each segment with a value of mine. Please consider pausing the presentation to grab a bit of paper if you'd like to, and drawing a circle on it and dividing it up into segments. It may look like this, maybe without the colour, of course, unless you have colouring pencils handy and you've been feverishly at work since we've been chatting. Down the bottom, we've got mental, emotional, physical. That's all about me as a person. Up the top, I've got social, helpful, friends and family, and financial. It's about my interactions in the world. Helpful, friends and family is there for a reason. Family probably shouldn't be there unless dysfunctional is before it. So it's mainly, it can be my family of choice, my close friends or people that I know are supportive of me as a person. And social is helpful social contacts rather than people who attempt to get me into strife. These 6 areas are often seen in planning: physical, mental, emotional. Directly apply to me: financial, family and social. These areas are likely to apply to my world. Family might be a close friend, my family of choice, as said before. Social is likely better to be a helpful interaction rather than someone attempting to get me in jail. I might have any value of mine, of course. The outside or outer edge of the circle is moving toward completely satisfied with that area, 10, and the centre of the circle is moving toward not all that satisfied, a 0. Perhaps looking a little bit like this with 0 in the centre and 10 on the outside. I might put a dot in each segment or draw a line in each segment and mark it as to how reasonably satisfied I am with each value or area. Maybe join the dots or lines. Reasonably satisfied: if I used to run a marathon and I now have a back injury or am just very unfit and walking the block is all I can do, and I am doing that, then it is probably worth an 8 or 10. So I'm not judging myself as to how historically I was doing things. It's what I'm doing right now. Reasonably satisfied: if I have 14 brothers and sisters and only one talks to me and I am talking to that person and taking the time to do that regularly, then maybe it's an 8 or a 10. This is more about what I can realistically expect of myself right this minute, where I am at the moment in the execution of my current capability, with a bit of self-compassion thrown in. So my common human need to kick my own butt, I might put it aside for the moment and just be a bit compassionate with my dear self. Emotional: I now see an emotional driver. I'm getting the hang of this stuff. I still regularly tend to scare the horses. However, I give myself an 8 for awareness and ABC use. So emotionally, I still sometimes frighten people and myself. However, I'm really working on it and I'm happy with the progress I've made. So I'm going to give myself an 8 for it, even though some of the horses have run off into the distance. Physical: I'm doing okay. I'm walking once a week. I give myself a 3. I maybe can schedule better, have a starting ritual to get out of the house and exercising. I can see where I am going. 3 is very okay for me today. It's not where I'd like to be, but I'm happy that I'm putting in some effort. So thanks, brain, for not kicking my butt mercilessly. I do appreciate it. What might my shaded in wheel look like? As a wheel, how might it roll at this particular point in time? If it were on my car, what might the ride be like? Could I drink an open coffee or tea wearing a white top? I feel not. With a wheel like that, how might my wheel look? Being nice about it, being a bit polite about it to my dear self. Please consider pausing the presentation and maybe pondering this a little. My life balance wheel, I commend the link that's in the description box below to you. I might choose to remember. If I'm choosing to upset myself over my lifestyle balance wheel, I'll attempt to use an ABC tool. The life balance wheel is only a thing. I'll breathe. In for 4, pause. Out for 8, pause. Diaphragmic breathing. Awareness might be the beginning of my change, said the wonderful Two Putts. Two Putts continued these meetings after Charlie started them. Rest in peace, Two Putts, you are greatly missed. Rather than a thing upsetting me, I might choose to alter the degree to which I upset myself about it. My discomfort may actually equal my growth. Might I be being demanding as I look at this wheel? To what degree might my wheel have to be perfect, should be perfect, must be perfect? To what degree might I be musting myself to a standstill? Or might I be simply looking upon this as another awareness increasing tool and maybe relaxing into it and allowing for my humanness to grow and develop in an area that I'd prefer it to be? Possibly helpful question concerning my lifestyle balance wheel. How close might I be to living my bit more balanced life that I may prefer? What alteration might I prefer to make? What might I choose to do to perhaps round out my life a little more? The wheel is then as smooth as I prefer it to be. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. Progress plan, change plan worksheet. I commend the link in the description box below to actually have a progress plan or change plan worksheet in place. A possibly helpful question concerning my lifestyle balance wheel. In what way might a true value of mine as a priority be currently reflected in an action of mine? If I had 1 month to live, how might I be spending my time? I probably have more than 1 month. Please don't bring this slide up at my funeral. But I definitely should have more than 1 month. Possibly helpful question concerning my lifestyle balance wheel. What area of my life might I like to see benefit from a little more of my attention? How might I move from a 6 to a 6.5? What might it take to move from a 3 to a 3.25? Where might more attention or prioritization be possibly helpful? So I don't need to go from a 6 to a 10 or a 3 to a 7. It's a simple incremental move in a direction that I prefer to be going as much as I am able to at this particular point, if I choose to. Possibly helpful question concerning lifestyle balance. In what way might I be involved in too many activities? Where might I have more on my plate than is helpful? What dream or desire that appears to keep getting sidetracked might I like to focus on? How much of my time is spent caring for an other? How much time is spent caring for my precious self? I might choose to have fun. I know fun's a 4-letter word. 1, 2, or maybe not. If an effort I am putting into balancing my life starts to feel burdensome, then maybe I may choose to back it off a bit. I might sell myself on a benefit of keeping going as well. Perhaps I might choose to seek out some fun in an effort of mine. I might choose to have a good time with this new experience of mine, while perhaps more deeply exploring this area of my life. So I might move a little bit away from taking myself too seriously and attempt to relax into whatever effort I'm putting in. If anyone's saying what's in here is easy, it means they've obviously never done it. A notion I might like my darling brain to entertain is that perhaps it's more likely than my wonderful brain is telling me at the moment. Perhaps I can actually move in a helpful direction and my brain refuses to acknowledge that fact. Thanks a lot, brain. Good to see you popping in. My bit truer happiness might come from me gaining an insight and growing a bit more toward my more helpful possible self. Otherwise, all I'm having is immediate gratification, pleasure, which is fleeting and doesn't tend to grow me as a person. That's Aristotle-ish. Could have been changed a little bit. Not saying. It is a powerful shift in a more active life when, rather than moving forward because I hate what is behind me, I start to move forward because I'm beginning to better love what is in front of me. Wow. Thanks, HughK. I commend this to you as perhaps an idea I might sit with for a moment and entertain. Perhaps to dig a little deeper in each area of my wheel in my life when I feel it's appropriate or I want to do it, I might choose to break each area down into a wheel of its own. Physical, so I might break that down into a wheel of its own: eating well, aerobic exercise, strength training, flexibility, isometrics, feeling safe, sleep. Emotional, ABC, self-care, meditation or mindfulness or relaxation practice, spirituality, resilience, emotional stability. Mental, values, helpful risk-taking, self-awareness, unconditional self-acceptance, well-organized learning. Family or close friend, family of choice. Companionship, close family, close friend, deeper feeling, growing as a person, regular contact. Financial, ethics, productive, personally rewarding, making money, financial security, ability used. Social, being with people, taking care of another. Fun, that four-letter word again. Meaningful contact, pleasure, unconditional other acceptance. There was a presenter named Marco who shared these as food for thought, broke the physical, mental, emotional, family, financial and social into these areas. I commend both these slides to you as something to maybe entertain if you choose to. Balancing my momentary and my enduring satisfaction is likely to be a bit helpful. A bit richer, a bit fuller, or a bit more meaningful life is possibly one of improved lifestyle balance. I commend that notion to you. What alteration in my routine or schedule, or getting a routine or schedule for that matter, a bit more in place, might help me focus a little more on a value of mine and help me move a little more toward my bit more balanced life. Please consider pausing the presentation and maybe pondering those questions if you choose to. How often might I choose to do this lifestyle balance exercise? How often might be useful to me? Please consider pausing the presentation and maybe pondering those two questions. My eyes are the window to my soul. Maybe I'll pull open my drapes little by little to let the true me shine out. Thanks, baby girl 1005. I trust you're keeping well. Thank you for that contribution. Intriguing thought. Maybe 0 is at the outside of the circle and 10 is at the center of the circle. Maybe I am balanced when I am as one with each area of my life and at peace with each. Shorter term satisfaction is perhaps guided by a demand for a problematic instant gratification, my pig, oink. a feeling instead of a value of mine or a goal of mine, entitlement thinking, approval seeking, rebellion. Longer term satisfaction is perhaps guided by a value of mine or a goal of mine, an evolving helpful view of my future, safeguarded against an unhelpful satisfaction of the present, a bit more reality-based thought, plan or doing rather than simply a wish. I commend the ABC in the description box below for looking at how reality-based thought could be developed. I might even move a little away from satisfaction altogether and a bit more towards eudaimonia. Eudaimonic well-being refers to living a life of greater virtue or a value-based one in pursuit of my human growth and development. An experience derived from such living include self-actualization, personal expression, and vitality. Two different types of happiness. I commend that video to you to have a look at eudaimonia. I might choose to redo my hierarchy of values from time to time. As often as I choose, I might ask myself, what is a current value of mine? Then I might redo my life balance wheel and maybe ask, how might my wheel roll now? What might the ride be like? In what way might I still be okay with this ride? If I choose to, how might I improve something just a little? There's no need to throw myself out and start again. I can grow and develop. I have that capacity. I don't care what you say, brain. I have that capacity. Ensuring as much as I can to have some fun, that four-letter word once more, as I acknowledge a bit of my progress, a bit of my success, and my improved commitment to my bit more active, a bit more meaningful life. Balanced life and vitally absorbing creative interest are often in relapse prevention. What might that suggest? Maybe they could be in more helpful life creation as well, rather than moving away from something I'm trying not to do, perhaps moving towards something that I'd prefer to be doing, my more helpful life. Vitally absorbing creative interest is in the description box below, the link. I commend it to you as worthwhile having a look at if you'd like to. Vitally absorbing creative interest, 398 things I might try. I might pick one of those things and maybe have a go at it. Perhaps have a go at it 7 times before I decide how I feel about it, to give myself a chance to get used to it, to settle into it. Vitally absorbing creative interest, 180 things to do. Vitally absorbing creative interest, 126 music activities that I might like to have a go at one of those. I commend all those things to you. They're in the description box below. Please, of course, I'd like to keep in mind not to burn myself out. I don't have to be doing all 398, 180 and 126 things at the same time. I might choose one or two to maybe have a bit of a look at or a bit of a go at, or even just one or none if I like. The wheels on my lifestyle bus do not yet go round and round. Now that I recognise it, I might choose to work on it more readily. Thanks, Impala Baby. Trust you're keeping well. Rather than break a habit, it is apparently far more likely that I replace a habit. It might start with me identifying a habit of action or thought that appears to limit me and move to replace it with a habit that is more likely to empower and encourage me. Wow. Thanks, HughK. Even if I am on the right track, I'll get run over if I just sit there. Thanks, Joe. My active life is probably me doing a little something. There's 2 ways to fail. A, do nothing. B, do something and not succeed. Which one might give me the most potential for personal growth, A or B? Please consider pausing the presentation and perhaps pondering the power in one of those 2. Fail, further attempt in learning. Thanks, Zircon57. Trust you're well. Thanks for all your contributions to all the meetings you've been in. You are greatly appreciated. To fall 7 and rise 8, my life begins anew. Kosho proverb. To fall 7 and rise 8, my life begins anew. I might choose to do stuff. I might choose to be cleansed, curious, Rather than waiting for inspiration's shove or society's kiss on my forehead, I might choose to pay attention. It might be all about paying attention. Attention might be vitality. It might connect me with another person. It might help me be eager. I might choose to stay eager. Thanks, Susan. Rather than let the expectation or opinion of another affect my decision, I consider it's my life rather than theirs. I choose to do what matters most to me. I choose to do what helps me be alive and happy. Maybe there might be so much more to my life than what I choose to experience right now. My challenge might be to decide who I am for myself, becoming a more whole being. Adventure. Thanks, Roy T. My new life is likely to begin at the edge of my comfort zone. So not 3,000 miles out of my comfort zone, not even 2 miles or a mile, just at the edge of my comfort zone, just pushing it a little bit. I commend that notion to you, and thanks a bunch, Neil, for bringing that to my attention. I'm under no obligation to be the same person I was a year, a month, or even 15 minutes ago. I give myself the right to grow. No apologies. From one of my favourite authors, Unknown. Rather than being afraid to start over, this time I'm not starting from scratch. I'm starting from experience. A Facebook meme. That's one time Facebook has been useful. My helpful life is when I'm guided by my reason and motivated by my love. Wow. Thanks, Bertrand. My helpful life is when I'm guided by my reason and motivated by my love. Congratulations on using your power of choice and taking an action to be here. I commend and congratulate you on choosing to look at perhaps a different way to be in your world. This is where the resources are that we used to create this meeting. I commend them to you as something potentially useful. All the quotes from this meeting should be in there. If someone tells me that a thing in this presentation is easy, as was stated before, it means they have obviously not tried to do it. A thing that I might like my wonderful brain to entertain or consider is that a thing in here is perhaps a little bit more possible than my wonderful darling brain is telling me right at this minute. Thanks a bunch, brain. Whatever I can manage to do at this particular time is wonderfully okay. I am at the coalface, so to speak. I am doing the work. Whatever I can manage to do is wonderfully okay. If I got a bit from the meeting, perhaps I'll give a bit. If a light came on for me ever so slightly, perhaps I'll pay some of the light bill that caused these things to be created. Please consider donating a little to whoever or whatever helps you a little. In this case, I'd ask you to please click on the link in the description box below and drop in a few dollars for the Greater Good website. If you haven't been to the Greater Good website, I commend you to click on the links that are below also for the Greater Good website and also the GGIA website, Greater Good in Action, which has a lot of tools and techniques and mindsets that are scientifically shown to be a bit helpful. Once again, I congratulate and commend you on being here. I'm sorry we don't get to meet or I don't get to speak to you. It would be nice to see if something in this meeting was of use to you. I trust it will be. I do wish you all the best in your journey.